that doesn't sound good. So first, a little bit of theory. I'm going to introduce you to a new mathematical symbol. That's the exclamation point. So we don't read this as n, that we're really excited. That's not what this is about in math. It's called n factorial. N factorial. And so we call it factorial notation. So 5 factorial, again, not 5, we're not excited here. 5 factorial, what it means is 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. How often the last half day have you written 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? Or 4 times 3 times 2 times 1? Or 6 times 5 times 4? You got a little tired of writing all that out? That's why we have notation. So I, because I know this, would never write out 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I would just write 5 factorial. 8 factorial, what does it represent? 8 times. What does n factorial represent? So if we follow the pattern, it starts with n. Then we times by n minus 1. Then we times by n minus 2. And eventually, we're going to get down to 2 times 1. Okay, so we keep going, subtracting 1 until we get down to 1. Here are the ones that you need to know without a calculator. Anything larger than that will be on the calculator section. 2 factorial, well, what does it mean? 2 times 1, so 2 factorial is equal to 2. 3 factorial means 3 times 2 times 1. Perfect. 4 factorial, 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. 5 factorial, 5 times 4 times 3 times 2 times 1. And that's why yesterday I could look at 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, knew it was 60 because I've done this a bajillion times. 0 factorial. It's 1. How many ways can you arrange no objects? 1 way, none. How many ways can you arrange no objects? 1 way. That's why 0 factorial is 1. It's one of those little funky ones. On the calculator, let's find it first, then we'll write down where it is. Andrew, you excited? I'm going into the math button, which is under your alpha key. Yes. Thanks. And I didn't even catch it. I know, I know. Can you see that? I went into the math button. And I'm going to tab over to PRB, which stands for probability. And because I'm lazy, I don't actually tab to the right. I tab to the left, so I go backwards to tab once to PRB. What do you see on that list? There's your factorial button, number 4. So math. Tab whichever way you want. I go to the left. And what you're looking for is the probability menu, PRB. And it's number 4, factorial. And so the way the button works is you actually have to go back to the home screen and put the value of it first. So if we just prove 5 factorial, since I already screwed that up, I'm going to hit the 5 first, go into the math button, tab to the probability menu, pick number 4. And so you should have on your screen 5 factorial, hit enter, will be 120. Let's do a big one. What does 20 factorial mean? 20 times 19 times 18, okay. Yeah, we'll get there in a second. So sometimes you're going to get stuff like this. You should know what this is from science. What does that little E guy mean? times 10 to the 18. Somebody did 120. Okay, let's do 120. What does that represent, 120 factorial? Times. And at some point you're going to get what's called an overflow error. Overflow means it's just too big for the calculator. Okay, so imagine if you were trying to arrange 120 objects.
On the new operating system, it even gives it. On the new operating system, it even gives some fancy explanation.
Oh, calculation exceeds the range of values that this machine is able to display. Look at that.
I'm trying to turn down
I think it's actually this. No, they can't see it. Anyway, that's what overflow error means if you ever get that. So in that case, if we had a question like this, we would just leave it as 120 factorial. We wouldn't actually get the numerical value. Question so far on what a factorial represents. Again, it's not excitement, although we get excited in math. This is not the point where we get excited. So first kinds of questions that can come up are just simplifying questions. So simplify that thing without a calculator. No touchy. Put it away. Don't touch it. How do we simplify factorials without a calculator?
We don't.
Oh, we do.
But 10 and 8 we don't memorize.
Oh, we don't need to. Watch this little handy trick. What does 10 factorial represent? 10 times 9 times 8 times 7 times 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So 10 times 9. And then I'm going to stop and I'm just going to put 8 factorial. Because I know 8 factorial is equal to 8 times 7 times 6 times 4 times 6 times 7. Why did I stop at the 8 factorial on the top? Oh, look what's going to happen here. What happens when I have an 8 factorial on the top and an 8 factorial on the bottom? Well, what happens with anything divided by itself? These cancel and it's just equal to 1. And so 10 factorial divided by 8 factorial is equal to 10 times 9, which is 90. There's how to simplify big ones without a calculator. (12 factorial over 10 factorial. Little piece of advice you might want to write down is you always want to do what I call breakdown. Break down the larger number. It's always the larger one you're going to break down until you reach the higher one, or to the lower one. So what's bigger, 12 or 10? 12. So I'm going to start breaking down 12. And 12 factorial is equal to 12 times
11
times.
10 factorial.
Why do I stop there? Why did I stop at 8 up here and now I'm stopping at 10 here?
Cancellation. So that equals 132.
Well, sometimes just for fun, they won't give you numbers. They're just going to give you variables and say simplify. Who put the alphabet into math? Always start by breaking down the larger of the two. So you can pick any number and substitute in to figure out which one is larger. Is n larger or is n minus 2? Give me a number for n. 5. So is 5 larger or is 5 minus 2 larger? 5 is larger. So I'm going to start by breaking down the top. So n factorial is equal to n times n minus 1, n minus 2. And I want to stop there. Why do I want to stop there? Because it matches the bottom. Ooh, that's a squared. Austin, Arthur, you guys are having a really good time back there. I feel like I'm not invited to this party. N factorial over n plus 1 factorial. Something like this could either be a 1-mark exam question or maybe a multiple choice question. All you have to do is figure out which of these is the bigger. Is it the top or the bottom? How do we know it's the bottom? Because it's plus 1, it's going to be bigger. So let's start breaking down the bottom. N plus 1 factorial starts with n plus 1. Why do I want to stop there? Here's a really common mistake that I see a bajillion times. Yeah, how did it magically move to the top? I don't know, people do it all the time. So just remember when you cancel, there's a 1, so there's a 1 left on top. How do you feel with the simplifying without a calc? Okay. Let's look at a question exactly like what we would have done yesterday. Jeff has 5 different favorite songs. How many different playlists can he make? How many blanks? 5. How many choices for the first song? How many choices for the second song? And then we know it's going to be 3, and then 2, and then 1. So that's all I do. I don't actually write it out. I just put a 5 factorial in the first blank, and that tells the marker of your exam that you're filling it all the way in down to 0. And you've now memorized 5 factorial, and we'll get it right this time.
Not 60.
So this notation is just a quick way to write this all out without having to write out all the numbers. Let's do a permutation with restriction. How many 4-digit numbers can be made using the numbers 3, 6, 8, and 9 if repetition is not allowed? How many blanks? How many choices for the first spot? How many choices for the next spot if we can't repeat? And then, so the short way, 4 factorial. It was really hard for me yesterday not to write the factorials. 4 factorial, you've already memorized. Questions so far? Well, the second way I'm going to make yesterday shorter is there's actually a permutation formula. We call it NPR. N and R are subscript, so they're smaller than the P. And sometimes you'll hear me say NPIC-R. We tend to put pick because we're picking things. I don't know. We just say it that way. NPIC-R.
Why are we talking about National Public Radio?
But that would be like capital N, capital R. And I enjoy National Public Radio. Don't dog that. It's called the permutation formula. N is the number of objects of with an F. R is the number you want to select or arrange. The formula NPR, on the top is an n factorial, on the bottom is an n minus r factorial. N factorial over n minus r factorial. That's why we need to learn what factorials were, because it's in the formula. Is it on your formula sheet? Prove it. Prove it. Where is it? Left-hand side or right-hand side? Top or bottom? Middle. Okay, so if you notice, it's kind of following the order that we did the units. So you don't need to memorize, it'll always be there. Example number 4, we're going to do a same question from yesterday. We're just going to do it in the 2 ways, and you can pick whichever one you like better.
Yeah, Miss Collins.
3 people, 5 deaths. We're going to do it yesterday using the FCP. What does FCP stand for? Fundamental Accounting Principle. I don't know why I always say it like that. It just sounds so important. It's fundamental. This is the blanks. That's what FCP is when we put the blanks out. So we have 3 and we have 5. How many blanks do we put out? Choices for the first blank. Choices for the second blank. Choices for the third blank. Why didn't I just write 5 factorial? It doesn't go all the way down to 1, so this one you need to fill in to show me what you're multiplying. A 5 times a 4 times a 3. Here's how to do the same question with the formula. How many objects and how many do we want to arrange? There are 5 objects, and we want to arrange 3 of them. So we call this a 5p3 or a 5pic3. So on the top is the n, which is 5, so 5 factorial. On the bottom is 5 minus 3 factorial. BEDMAS says we simplify the brackets first. So within the brackets, I've got a 5 minus 3, which would be 2 factorial. This is why we just practice simplifying factorials. Which one am I going to break down, the 5 or the 2? The 5. So 5 factorial is equal to times 4 times 3 times 2 factorial. Going to stop there. Why am I stopping there? So I'm just going to highlight. Here we had a 5 times a 4 times a 3. What do we have here once we cancel? A 5 times a 4 times a 3. That's why you can do it either way. It's going to be the exact same thing. Total of 60. Blanks, formula, completely your choice. My brain works in blanks because I like things to be linear. If you like the formula, use the formula. You don't actually need to simplify this way if your brain just knows already 5 factorial is 120 divided by 2 factorial, which is 2. 120 divided by 2 is 60. So you don't need to show this step. I was just showing you that they're exactly the same. How are we feeling so far? And pick R is also on the calculator. Did you see it when we did factorials? Where might it be? Math. Whoop, turn the calculator on first. And then? Number 2. Write that down in the box. What do you think NCR is if the unit is perms and comps? Just say it. Just say it. Write down in the box where to find it. So let's just prove our 5 pick 3 from the last example. The way it works on the calc is you put the n value first. The money's really warm. You put the n value first, which in this case is 5. Then you pull up your NPR, so math, probability, number 2. Then you put in the R value, which was 3. So the n goes first, then the NPR, then the 5, and we should get 60 if everything went well. Okay, so you might just want to make a note near that box or in that box just how to punch it into your calc.
And if you've got the new operating system, I mean, it actually...
No, it's pretty. It actually does the subscripts. That's pretty.
I love the new operating system.
Questions so far? So the last thing we're going to do are these examples like 5, 6, 7, where it asks you to solve a bunch of stuff. These are called permutation equations. And this one's simple enough. We could do some guess and check. We could put in 4, we could put in 5, we could put in 6. But as we know, guess and check is not a pre-cal way to do things. We want an algebraic way to do things. So step number 1, let's figure out what the formula is on this side. What does NP2 equal? N factorial divide by n minus 2 factorial. So step number 1, substitute into the formula. Into the NPR formula. The next step would be to simplify these factorials. This is another reason why we practice this already. We need to break down the higher one. What's bigger, n or n minus 2? N, so I'm going to start breaking it down. It's n times n minus 1 times n minus 2 stop for factorial. Why did I choose to stop there? Because it cancels with the bottom. So simplify factorial and cancel. Am I going too fast? Okay, so we're going to multiply this side just like we did in the previous example. So this equals. And then just bringing down the right-hand side, we knew it was equal to 30. Why, what kind of equation is this? How many ways are there to solve a quadratic? What are the 5 ways to solve a quadratic? Quadratic formula. No one's as excited. Come on, quadratic formula. Completing the square. Factoring. Difference of squares. Andrew, what's the last way? Calculator. So I'll solve for n. I'm going to factor because it's my favorite. You do that. How do we have to factor this? What do we do? What do we bring the 30 over? I kind of heard it, but I didn't really hear it. Confirm minus 6 plus 5. So n equals. Are they both valid answers? We'll go back. What does n represent in the permutation formula?
Can I send some kids to you?
Yep.
Right at the beginning?
Yep.
Cool, thanks.
What does n represent in the formula? Number of. Go back and look at the formula where n equals. Number of objects. Can you have negative 5 people? Negative 5 songs, negative 5 books, negative 5 values. So we reject the extraneous root. And so we say n comma r has to be greater than 0. No, that's just why we're rejecting it. Can't have a negative.
What's the comma?
N and r can't be negative. So answer is?
I thought it was some crazy notation.
Yeah. Apparently Austin is done. Apparently you're done. Did you box that? Did you cross that out? Show me.
Well, we are done because the bell's going to ring at like
We'll pick it up this afternoon.